The afternoon sun cut through the Venetian blinds of Riverside Diner in long golden strips. Dust particles danced in the light like tiny stars suspended in amber. The smell of coffee and bacon grease hung thick in the air, mixed with something sweeter cinnamon rolls cooling on the rack behind the counter. Outside, the California heat shimmered off the asphalt, making the parking lot look like it was breathing. Inside, the air conditioner hummed its familiar song, the same song it had been humming since 1984. Martha Sullivan moved between the tables with the practiced grace of a woman who had walked this floor for 40 years. 68 years old, silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, her pale blue uniform pressed sharp despite the heat. Her hands trembled slightly as she refilled coffee cups. Just a tremor. Nothing she couldn't manage. Nothing she'd complain about. She'd been doing this since she was 28, since the week after they buried James. Her fingers brushed against the pocket of her apron. Inside, folded with care, was a blue handkerchief. Faded now, the edges frayed from decades of handling. James had given it to her on their first anniversary, 1978. She could still see his hands, oil-stained, scarred from a lifetime of motorcycle repair, offering it to her like it was made of silk instead of cotton. "Keep it," he'd said, "for when you need reminding that somebody gives a damn." She hadn't needed much reminding back then, but she kept it anyway. The jukebox in the corner clicked in word. A moment later, Creedence Clearwater Revival poured out, "Have You Ever Seen the Rain?" Martha smiled despite herself. That jukebox only played songs from the 70s and 80s. Floyd, the owner, refused to update it. Said modern music had no soul. Floyd was 75 now. Still came in every morning at 5 to start the coffee. Still wore the same flannel shirts he'd been wearing since Carter was president. "Refill, Martha," a voice called from booth 3. "Coming right up, sweetheart." She moved to the pot, her orthopedic shoes squeaking softly against the checkered linoleum. The floor was original. Black and white squares, some of them cracked, now the grout yellowed with age. She knew every crack, every stain, every story. Table 7 sat empty near the window. It was always empty until late afternoon. Floyd kept it reserved. Never said why, but Martha knew. That was the Sullivan family table. Had been since 1980. James used to sit there every Sunday morning reading the paper, one hand wrapped around his coffee mug, the other resting on Martha's knee under the table. After he died, she'd brought baby Jack there every Sunday. Just the two of them. She'd feed him mashed bananas and tell him stories about his father. Now Jack was 45, and he still came to table 7. Just not yet. Not for another hour. The front door chimed. 3 young men walked in laughing loud enough to turn heads. Early 20s, dressed in expensive casual wear designer jeans, polo shirts with little emblems stitched over the Hearts watches that cost more than Martha made in 6 months. Trent Ashford III, Holden Carmichael, Preston Whitmore. They came in every Thursday around this time, ordered burgers and fries, left their table a mess, tipped poorly or not at all. Martha had served their type before, rich kids slumming it in a working-class diner because they thought it was ironic or authentic or whatever word they were using this week. They took booth 8, the big one near the back. Martha grabbed 3 menus and walked over. Her hands shook a little more than usual. She'd forgotten to take her medication this morning. "Afternoon, gentlemen," she said, setting the menus down. "What can I get you to drink?" Trent looked up from his phone. Didn't smile. 3 Cokes, and make sure there's actually ice this time. Last week it was lukewarm." "Of course, I'll make sure." She turned to go. "Hey," Preston called after her. "You okay? You're shaking pretty bad." Martha stopped, turned back, forced a smile. "Just a little arthritis, honey. Nothing to worry about." "Arthritis," Holden repeated, grinning at his friends. "That's what happens when you work at a diner for like 100 years? The others laughed. Martha's smile didn't falter. "I'll get those Cokes for you." She walked back to the counter. Floyd was there, wiping down the coffee maker. He'd heard. His jaw was tight. "Those boys," he muttered. "One of these days." "Don't," Martha said quietly. "They're harmless." "Harmless like a rattlesnake's harmless." She poured 3 Cokes, made sure the ice was fresh, carried them back on a tray, her steps careful measured. The tremor in her hands made the glasses rattle slightly against the tray. Almost there. Just 3 more steps. Trent stuck his foot out. He did it casually. Didn't even look up from his phone. Just extended his leg into the aisle at the exact moment Martha passed. She didn't see it until too late. Her shoe caught his ankle. The tray tilted. 3 Cokes ice and all tumbled forward in slow motion. The glasses hit the edge of the table, shattered against the floor. Liquid and ice exploded across the tile. Shards of glass glittered under the fluorescent lights. Martha stumbled, caught herself on the back of a chair. Her knee hit the floor. Hard. For a moment, everything stopped. The jukebox kept playing. Fortunate Son now. The air conditioner kept humming, but every conversation in the diner died. "Oh my God," Trent said, pulling out his phone. "Did you see that?" He was filming. "She just totally tripped over nothing," Holden added, leaning in to get a better angle. Preston laughed. "Granny can't even walk straight." Martha knelt there on the wet floor glass, crunching under her knees. She didn't look up, didn't cry, just reached into her apron pocket and pulled out the blue handkerchief, pressed it against her eyes. One tear, just one. She wouldn't give them more than that. Floyd came running from behind the counter. "Martha, are you hurt?" "I'm fine," she said. Her voice was steady, too steady, the kind of steady that comes from practice. Trent was still filming. "This is gold, absolute gold." "Dude, zoom in on her face," Preston said. Holden stood up, looked down at Martha with mock concern. "Ma'am, maybe you should retire. You know, before you hurt yourself, or someone else." "Yeah," Trent added, lowering his phone just enough to meet her eyes. "That's all you're good for anyway." He pulled a napkin from the dispenser, wiped his hands slowly, deliberately, then tossed it onto the wet floor beside her. "Cleaning up messes." The laughter that followed was sharp, cruel. Martha stayed on her knees, started picking up the glass pieces one by one. Her hands were shaking badly now. The blue handkerchief was soaked. Floyd grabbed her arm. "Martha, stop. I'll clean this up. You go to the back." "I'm fine, Floyd. I'm calling the police." "No." Her voice was firm, final. "Please, don't." "But they're just boys, Floyd. Boys being boys." Floyd looked at the three young men. They were back to their phones now, uploading the video, showing it to each other, laughing. He looked back at Martha, opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. Because he knew Martha Sullivan, knew she was the kind of woman who'd buried a husband at 38, raised a son alone, and worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table, and never once asked for pity. Knew she was the kind of woman who said, "I'm fine," even when she wasn't. Knew there was no point arguing with her. "Should I call Jack?" he asked quietly. Martha's head snapped up. "No, never tell Jack about this. Promise me." Floyd hesitated. "Martha, promise me, Floyd," he sighed. "I promise." But he didn't have to call, because at that exact moment, the front door chimed. The sound cut through the diner like a blade. Every head turned. A man stood in the doorway. 6'2", broad shoulders that filled the frame. Dark jeans, black boots, a leather vest worn soft with age. The vest was covered in patches, skulls, wings, flames, and in the center across the back, where everyone could see it, 3 words stitched in red: Hell's Angels, California. The man's face was weathered, lined with years of sun and wind and road. Beard shot through with gray, eyes the color of winter steel. Tattoos snaked up his arms, tribal patterns, names, dates, symbols only other riders would understand. He stood there, backlit by the afternoon sun, a dark silhouette against the brightness outside. Then he stepped inside. The door swung shut behind him, and Martha looked up from the floor glass, still in her hands, tears still on her cheeks, and their eyes met. His name was Jack Sullivan, and he was her son. Jack didn't move for 3 full seconds, just stood there taking in the scene, his mother on her knees, broken glass, wet floor. 3 young men at booth 8, phones still out, grins still plastered on their faces. He saw everything, the tremor in her hands, the blue handkerchief, the single tear track down her cheek, the napkin on the floor beside her. His jaw tightened. Just a fraction. Anyone else would have missed it. Martha didn't. "Jack," she said, tried to smile. "You're early." He walked toward her, slow, deliberate, boots heavy on the tile. The jukebox had switched songs. Leonard Skinner now. Simple man. The universe had a sense of irony. Jack knelt beside his mother, took the glass from her hands, set it on a nearby table. Then he took both her hands in his. They were cold, shaking. "You hurt?" he asked. His voice was low, quiet, the kind of quiet that makes people lean in to listen. "No, sweetheart. I was clumsy, that's all." Jack's eyes never left hers. "Mom, in 45 years, I've never seen you drop so much as a sugar packet. Don't tell me you were clumsy." Martha opened her mouth, closed it. Floyd appeared with a mop. "Jack, I tried to." "I know, Floyd. Thank you." Jack helped his mother to her feet, guided her to table 7, the family table. sat her down gently like she was made of porcelain. Then he walked back to the mess, picked up every piece of glass with his bare hands, dumped it in the trash behind the counter. The three young men watched him, whispered to each other. "That's the biker dude," Preston said. "I've seen him before." "So what?" Trent replied. "What's he gonna do?" Jack finished cleaning, washed his hands in the sink behind the counter, dried them on a towel. Then he walked to booth 8, stood there, didn't say anything, just looked at them. Up close they could see the details. The road rash scar along his jaw, the tattoo on his neck, death before dishonor in Gothic script, the knuckles that had healed crooked from breaking one too many times. They could see the way he stood, balanced, weight on the balls of his feet, ready. They could see his eyes, and in his eyes they could see nothing at all. "Afternoon, gentlemen," Jack said finally. His voice was conversational, almost friendly. Trent looked up, tried to match the casual tone. "Yeah, that lady you just humiliated, the one you tripped, the one you filmed, the one you called Granny, the one you mocked." He paused. "That's my mother." The color drained from Trent's face. Holden straightened in his seat. Preston's grin evaporated. "We didn't," Trent started. Jack held up one hand. "I'm giving you one chance, just one. Apologize. Delete the video. Pay for a new uniform to replace the one you ruined. And leave, right now. Do that and we're done here." Silence. Then Trent's brain caught up to his ego. He looked at his friends, looked back at Jack, pulled out his phone, and took a picture. "There," he said. "Evidence. Local thug threatening customers." He stood up, chest out. "My father is Ashford. Ashford Real Estate. You know who that is?" "No." "My dad's the district attorney," Holden added, standing as well. "Wallace Carmichael. You touch us, you're done." Preston was the last to stand. "Yeah, go back to whatever hole you crawled out of." Jack didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there, hands loose at his sides, breathing slow and even. He'd learned this in prison, how to control rage, how to let it wash over you like water instead of burning through you like fire. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. The anger was still there. It would always be there, but it didn't control him anymore. He was quiet for so long that Trent got nervous, started to sit back down. Then Jack spoke. "You just made a choice," he said softly. "Remember that." He turned and walked back to table 7, sat down across from his mother. The three young men stared after him, confusion written across their faces. "That's it," Holden whispered. "Guess the big bad bikers all talk," Preston said, but his voice shook a little. Jack didn't look back at them, didn't acknowledge they existed. He just focused on Martha. "Mom," he said. "You okay?" She nodded, dabbed at her eyes with the handkerchief. "I'm fine, baby, really. Your hands are shaking more than last week. Just forgot my medicine this morning. You need to see the doctor again." "I will." Floyd brought over 2 coffees without being asked, set them down, looked at Jack with an expression that said everything words couldn't. Jack gave him a small nod. "I got this." Floyd walked away. Martha reached across the table, took her son's hand. "Please don't do anything. Promise me. They're just kids. Stupid kids. Kids who hurt you." "They didn't hurt me. Not really. I've had worse. That doesn't make it okay." "Jack," she squeezed his hand. Her grip was weak, too weak. Your father tried to solve everything with his fists. And where did it get him? A heart attack at 46 working on an engine in a garage at 2 in the morning because he couldn't hold down a regular job after all those assault charges." Jack flinched. She'd never said it that plainly before. "I don't want that for you," she continued. "I don't want you in prison again. I don't want you hurt. I don't want you turning into something you're not because of me. I won't. Promise me. No violence. Not Dad's way." Jack looked at his mother. Really looked at her. Saw the lines around her eyes, the gray in her hair, the tremor in her hands that was getting worse every month. The way she still wore her wedding ring even though James had been dead for 29 years. Saw the woman who'd worked 3 jobs to keep him fed, who'd sat with him every night in that garage apartment helping with homework she didn't understand because she dropped out in 10th grade, who'd visited him every week during those 3 years in Pelican Bay, driving 4 hours each way, bringing him books and telling him stories about his father, who'd never once given up on him. "I promise," he said. "Not Dad's way, my way." She smiled, genuine this time. "That's my boy." Behind them, the 3 young men were packing up to leave, still laughing, still showing each other the video. As they passed table 7, Trent paused. "Hey," he called to Jack. "No hard feelings, right? Just a little accident. Jack didn't turn around, just sipped his coffee. They left. The door chimed behind them. Floyd came over with a rag, started wiping down table 7 even though it was clean. "Those boys," he muttered. "Someone ought to teach them some respect." "Someone will," Jack said quietly. Martha looked at him sharply. "Jack? Not me, Mom. I promised. But someone will, because that's how the world works. You plant cruelty, eventually you harvest consequences." Floyd paused in his wiping. "You sound like one of those fortune cookies." "I sound like an ex-con who had 3 years to read philosophy books." Martha laughed despite herself. "You always were a reader, even as a baby. I'd read you the same stories over and over, and you never got tired of them." "Tell me one," Jack said. "What?" "Tell me a story. About Dad, like you used to." Martha set down her coffee, folded the blue handkerchief and laid it on the table between them. Her fingers traced the faded embroidery, her initials, and James's, stitched by hand. "Your father," she began, "was the worst mechanic I ever met when I first knew him." Jack smiled. He'd heard this one before, but he never got tired of it. "He was 24. I was 22. He came into the salon where I worked asking if anyone knew someone who could fix a Harley. Said he'd been working on it for 3 weeks and couldn't figure out what was wrong." She smiled at the memory. "I told him my Uncle Bobby was a mechanic. Gave him the number." "But you didn't give him just the number?" Jack prompted. "No. I wrote my number on the back, told him to call me when the bike was fixed and I'd go for a ride with him. And he called. 2 days later, said the bike was running better than ever. Asked if I was free that Saturday." Martha's eyes were distant now, looking at something Jack couldn't see. "I was so nervous. I'd never been on a motorcycle before, never dated a biker. My mother said I was crazy, said bikers were criminals and thugs." "What'd you tell her?" "I told her James had the kindest eyes I'd ever seen, and that kindness matters more than perception." Jack was quiet for a moment. "Then was she right about bikers being thugs?" Martha looked at her son. Really looked at him. Saw the man he'd become, the scars, the tattoos, the leather vest with its patches earned through blood and brotherhood, the criminal record, the years in prison, and underneath all that the boy who'd cried when their cat died, who'd brought her dandelions from the yard like they were roses, who'd learned to cook so she wouldn't have to after her double shifts, who'd read to her from the books he'd discovered in prison, Marcus Aurelius Seneca Epictetus. "Some are," she said finally, "just like some doctors are thugs. Some lawyers are thugs. Some priests are thugs. Being a biker doesn't make you a thug any more than wearing a suit makes you honest." "Dad was a thug sometimes." "Yes, he was. And it killed him. But he was also the man who proposed to me at this table, who cried when you were born, who worked himself to exhaustion trying to provide for us." She took a shaky breath. "Your father was complicated. People are complicated." "I'm not, Dad." "No, you're better. Because you learned from his mistakes." Jack looked out the window. His Harley was parked right where his father's used to be. Same spot, different bike. The afternoon sun glinted off the chrome. "I need to go," he said. Martha's hand tightened on his. "Jack, I'm not doing anything stupid, Mom. I promised. But I need to think, process. You understand?" She nodded slowly. "Okay, but you'll come by tomorrow." "I'll come by tomorrow." He stood, kissed her forehead, laid a $20 bill on the table, enough to cover a coffee and leave Floyd a decent tip. Then he walked out. The door chimed behind him. Martha sat alone at table 7, the blue handkerchief folded in her lap, and watched through the window as her son mounted his motorcycle. The engine roared to life, a sound she'd heard her entire adult life, the sound of departure, of freedom, of men riding away from things they couldn't fix and toward things they couldn't change. But Jack didn't ride away. He pulled out his phone, typed something, put the phone away. Then he sat there on his bike engine idling and stared at the diner. Martha couldn't see his face, but she knew what he was thinking, because he was her son, and she'd raised him to care, maybe too much. The Harley's engine rumbled, deep, powerful, a sound you felt in your chest more than heard with your ears. Then Jack kicked it into gear and rolled out of the parking lot. Didn't roar away, didn't burn rubber, just rode off smooth and easy like he had all the time in the world. Martha watched until he disappeared around the corner. Then she unfolded the blue handkerchief, pressed it to her face, and cried. Not because she was hurt, not because she was humiliated, but because she knew her son, knew him better than anyone alive. And she knew that when Jack Sullivan said my way, he meant it. She just didn't know what that meant yet. The clubhouse sat 20 miles outside of town down a dirt road that wasn't on any map. A low building, concrete and corrugated metal surrounded by a chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. 20 motorcycles parked in neat rows out front. A flag on a pole, American flag on top, Hell's Angels flag below it. Inside, the walls were covered in memorabilia, patches from chapters all over the country, road maps with routes traced in marker, photographs, some in color, some black and white, all telling stories of men and machines and miles. The smell was distinct: motor oil, leather, old wood, and something else. Something harder to name. Brotherhood, maybe. Jack pushed through the front door at 6:30. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The main room was already full. 30 men, give or take, ages ranging from late 20s to mid-70s, all wearing the same patch on their backs. All family. They looked up when Jack entered. Conversations died. Church is called, Jack said. No one argued. No one asked why. They just stood, filed into the back room, took their seats around a long wooden table, scarred with decades of use. This was the church, not a religious space, a sacred one, where decisions were made, where problems were solved, where brothers spoke their minds and everyone listened. Ironhead sat at the head of the table. Vice President, 58 years old, gray beard down to his chest, arms thick as tree trunks. Navy veteran, 25 years in the club. He'd seen everything. To his right sat Viper, Sergeant at Arms, 50 years old, scar running from his left eyebrow to his jaw. Gulf War vet, the muscle, the enforcer, the one who made sure everyone followed the rules. To his left, Reverend, chaplain, 55, former Episcopal priest who'd left the church after realizing he disagreed with more than he agreed with. Found more truth in this room than he ever had in a cathedral. And beside Reverend Ledger, treasurer, 62, retired IRS investigator, quiet, detail-oriented, the kind of man who could find a needle in a haystack and tell you the exact composition of the metal. Jack took his seat, road captain, in charge of planning runs, organizing rides, making sure everyone got where they needed to go safely. What's going on, Reaper? Ironhead asked. They called him Reaper, had for years, not because he killed people, because he reaped what they sowed. Planted trouble, Jack harvested it. Jack pulled out his phone, brought up a video, set the phone in the center of the table, pressed play. The room watched in silence as Martha Sullivan was tripped as drinks spilled as she knelt on the floor. As three young men laughed and filmed and mocked, the video had already been posted, already had 300,000 views. When it finished, no one spoke for a long moment. Then Viper stood up. I'll handle it. Give me their names and addresses. By tomorrow morning, they'll wish they'd never been born. Sit down, Jack said quietly. Reaper, they humiliated your mother. Our mother. You can't let that stand. I'm not, but we're not doing it your way. Why? Reverend leaned forward. What are you thinking? Jack looked around the table. At these men, his brothers. Some of them had been riding with his father. Some had been at his father's funeral. All of them had watched him grow up, had been there when he went to prison, had been there when he got out. My father, Jack began, taught me how to fight, how to use my fists, how to intimidate, how to make people afraid. He paused. And you know what that got him? A criminal record, a reputation, and a heart attack at 46. Your father was a good man, Ironhead said. He was, but his methods were wrong. Fear doesn't change people. It just makes them careful. They wait until you're not looking, then they do it again. So what's your plan? Ledger asked. Jack picked up his phone, opened a new window. A news article. Ashford Real Estate faces lawsuit from elderly tenants. Trent Ashford's father owns a real estate company. They're being sued by 28 elderly tenants for wrongful eviction. The trial starts in 3 weeks. He swiped to another article. DA Wallace Carmichael under scrutiny for declining prosecution rates. Holden Carmichael's father is the district attorney. He's been burying cases for families who donate to his campaign. Another swipe. Councilwoman Victoria Whitmore faces ethics investigation. Preston Whitmore's mother is on the city council. She's being investigated for using campaign funds for personal expenses. Jack set down the phone. These boys aren't untouchable because they're strong. They're untouchable because their families have built walls around them. Walls made of money and power and connections. So we tear down the walls, Viper said. No, we remove one brick at a time, legally, publicly, so that when they finally fall, everyone sees why. Reverend smiled. You want to use the system against them. I want to use the truth, that's all. Just the truth. Ledger tapped the table. I can dig into the financials. Ashford Real Estate, the DA's office, the councilwoman's campaign. If there's fraud, I'll find it. Viper, Jack said. I need surveillance, not intimidation, just information. Where do they go? Who do they meet? What's their routine? Viper nodded slowly. Disappointed maybe, but loyal. I can do that. Reverend, I need you to talk to people, church networks, community groups. Find out if anyone else has been hurt by these boys. I'm guessing my mom isn't the first. I'm on it. Jack looked at Ironhead. And I need your permission, because what I'm about to do might bring heat on the club, might bring media attention, might make things complicated. Ironhead studied him for a long moment. Then, your mother is our mother. Your fight is our fight. You have my blessing. Do it smart. Do it legal. Do it right. I will. But Reaper, Ironhead added, voice hard now, if they hurt her again, if they so much as look at her wrong, then we do it my way. Oh, understood. Understood. The meeting broke up. Men filed out, some heading home, some heading to the bar in the corner of the clubhouse. Jack stayed in his seat. Ironhead stayed too. You really think this'll work? The older man asked. I don't know, but I promised my mom, no violence, and I keep my promises. Your father would be proud of you, even if he wouldn't understand your methods. My father, Jack said slowly, loved my mother more than anything in the world, but he didn't know how to protect her without hurting someone else. I'm trying to do better. Ironhead stood, clapped a heavy hand on Jack's shoulder. You already are, brother. You already are. He left. Jack sat alone in the church room. The walls were bare here. No decorations, no photographs, just wood and silence. He thought about his father, about the stories his mother told, about the man who'd been both kind and cruel, gentle and violent, loving and destructive. James Sullivan had died in a garage at 2 a.m. trying to fix an engine that didn't need fixing, trying to earn money for a family that needed him more than it needed cash. The heart attack had been massive, instant. He'd been found the next morning, tools still in his hand. Jack had been 16. He remembered the funeral, remembered the bikers who came, hundreds of them, from chapters all over California. They'd lined the street, engines idling a thunderous goodbye for one of their own. Remembered his mother's face, dry-eyed, stoic, holding it together because someone had to. Remembered the promise he'd made at the graveside. I'll take care of her dad, I swear. He'd kept that promise the only way he knew how. The way his father had taught him, with fists and fury. And it had landed him in prison. 3 years, assault. He'd beaten a man nearly to death for threatening Martha. The man had been a landlord trying to evict her illegally. Jack had solved the problem, but the cost had been high. Prison had changed him, given him time to think, to read, to learn that there were other ways to fight. He'd come out different, quieter, more patient, but no less dangerous, because now instead of fighting with rage, he fought with precision. Jack pulled out his phone, opened the video of his mother's humiliation, watched it again and again. Each time he noticed new details. The way Trent extended his foot at exactly the right moment, calculated. The way Holden started filming before the trip happened. Like he knew, the way Preston laughed, not surprised, amused. This wasn't an accident. This was cruelty for entertainment. And that video had 300,000 views now. 300,000 people watching his mother be degraded, some defending her, most just consuming it like any other content. Outrage porn for the algorithm. Jack's jaw tightened. He thought about his promise. No violence. He thought about his father, how violence had consumed him. He thought about his mother, how she'd begged him not to become what his father was. Then he thought about something Franklin Morrison had told him in prison. Duke, the old lifer. 70 years old, 40 of them behind bars. Former Marine. Former enforcer for a gang in Oakland. A man who'd killed, who'd tortured, who'd done unspeakable things, and who'd spent the last 2 decades of his life reading philosophy and teaching young inmates how to think instead of react. Duke had pulled Jack aside one day in the yard. 3rd month of Jack's sentence. You're angry, Duke had said. I can see it, burning you up from the inside. So what, Jack had replied. I should just let it go. Forgive everyone, no. You should use it. But like a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. Anger is a tool, but only if you control it. The moment it controls you, you've already lost. How do I control it? By remembering that revenge is about you feeling better. Justice is about them understanding what they did wrong. Revenge is temporary. Justice is permanent. Jack had carried those words with him for 16 years. Now, sitting in the empty church room, he understood them fully. He didn't want revenge. He wanted those boys to understand, to feel, to know in their bones what they'd done, and to carry that knowledge for the rest of their lives. That was justice. He stood, walked out of the clubhouse. The sun had set completely now. Stars scattered across the black sky like broken glass. His Harley waited. He mounted it, started the engine. The rumble filled the night. Then he rode. Not toward home, toward the diner, toward table 7, where if he closed his eyes, he could still see his father reading the paper, could still see his mother laughing, could still see himself as a child eating pancakes and listening to stories. The diner was closed when he arrived. Dark, empty, but he sat in the parking lot anyway. Engine off, just sitting, remembering. His phone buzzed. A text from Ledger found something. "Call me," Jack dialed. "What did you find?" "Ashford Real Estate has been cooking the books for 3 years. Understating income to avoid taxes, overstating expenses. I've got enough evidence here to trigger an IRS audit that would bury them. Legal completely. All public records and financial disclosures. I just know where to look. And the others, working on it. But Reaper, this is bigger than 3 stupid kids. These families are dirty. All of them." Jack was quiet for a moment. "Then we don't just go after the kids. We expose the whole structure." "That's dangerous." "I know. These people have resources, lawyers, connections. They'll come at you hard." "I know. And if they come at you, they come at the club." "I know," Ledger sighed. "Okay, but we do this right. Document everything. Build an airtight case. No shortcuts." "Agreed." They hung up. Jack sat in the parking lot a while longer, thinking, planning. Then he started the engine and rode home. Tomorrow the real work would begin. Tonight he just needed to sleep and remember his promise. No violence. His way, not his father's, his. The first light of Friday morning came cold and gray through the clubhouse windows. Jack had been awake for an hour already, sitting at the wooden table in the church room with maps spread before him. Not road maps this time. Maps of a different kind. Financial records, social media profiles, property deeds, court filings. The architecture of 3 families built on sand. Ledger arrived at 6, carrying a briefcase and 2 cups of coffee. He set one in front of Jack without a word, then opened the briefcase and began laying out documents with the precision of a man who'd spent 30 years making people's worst nightmares come true via IRS audits. Ashford Real Estate. He began tapping a thick folder. Revenue reported to the IRS $12 million annually. Actual revenue based on property holdings and rental rates closer to $28 million. That's $16 million in unreported income over 3 years. Jack sipped his coffee, listened. Wallace Carmichael, district attorney for 6 years. In that time, prosecution rates for certain types of crimes have dropped 43%, specifically crimes committed by individuals or families who've donated to his campaign fund. Ledger slid over another folder. I've got a list of 37 cases, assault, fraud, DUI, all declined prosecution, all involved donors. Is that illegal? Not technically. DA has discretion, but when you can prove a pattern, when you can show quid pro quo, it becomes corruption. And I can prove the pattern. Ann Whitmore, City Councilwoman Victoria Whitmore, campaign finance violations. She used campaign funds to pay for personal expenses, clothes, jewelry, a vacation to Cabo. Then she filed false reports claiming the expenses were for constituent outreach. Ledger smiled. The thing about politicians is they're always sloppy. They think no one's actually reading their reports. You read them. I always read them. Jack studied the documents. 3 families, 3 different types of corruption, all connected by one thing, the belief that they were untouchable. This is enough, he asked. To trigger investigations, absolutely. To guarantee convictions, that depends on how much pressure we can apply. The door opened. Viper walked in, phone in hand. He looked like he hadn't slept. Probably hadn't. Got their routines mapped, he said, pulling up a chair. Trent Ashford. Gym every morning at 6. Stanford prep from 8 to 3. Frat house from 4 to midnight. Thursday nights they hit Riverside Diner. Fridays they party at a club downtown called Apex. Holden Carmichael. Same schedule, different gym. He's at an MMA place on 5th Street. Preston Whitmore, yoga studio in the morning. Pretentious one where they burn incense and talk about chakras. Viper shook his head in disgust. Then same school, same parties. Any security? None. They think they don't need it. Too rich to touch, too young to have real enemies. They're wrong on both counts now, Jack said quietly. Viper leaned forward. Reaper, I've been following them for 2 days. And it's not just your mom. I've seen them bully 3 different people. Barista at a coffee shop, parking attendant, some delivery driver. They're consistent, I'll give them that. Jack felt something cold settle in his chest. Not anger, something colder. Calculation. Get me video. Everything you can. Legal surveillance only. Phones out, recording in public spaces. Nothing that could get thrown out of court. You really think this is going to court? Eventually. But first it's going to the court of public opinion. Reverend arrived at 7 just as the sun finally broke through the clouds. He looked troubled. Found 19 victims, he said without preamble. 19 people in the last 6 months who've had run-ins with those 3 boys. Service workers mostly, people who couldn't fight back. 19, Jack repeated, in 6 months. And those are just the ones willing to talk. I'm guessing there's more who are too scared or too ashamed. Tell me about them. Reverend pulled out a notebook. Maureen O'Reilly, 28, barista at a coffee shop called The Grind. They threw hot coffee at her. Claimed it was an accident. Called her a stupid Mick when she complained. Jack's jaw tightened. Next, Dwayne Tucker, 52, parking attendant at a downtown garage. They keyed his car, left a note with a racial slur. He reported it. Nothing happened. Next, Dorothy Callahan, goes by Dot, 57, Uber driver. They got sick in her car, refused to pay the cleaning fee, threatened her with a bad rating if she pushed it. The list continued. Each name a person, each person a story, each story an act of cruelty that had gone unanswered. Until now. The most serious, Reverend said, voice dropping, is Evelyn Hastings, 20 years old, college freshman. They sexually harassed her at a party, posted private photos of her online without consent. She tried to file a complaint with the university. And the university buried it. Ashford donates $2 million a year to their athletics program. They didn't want to lose the money. Jack was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft, dangerous. I want to meet her and her family. Can you arrange that? I already asked. They're willing to talk, but they're scared, Jack. These families have power. Not for much longer. Ironhead arrived at 8. The church room was full now. Not just the officers, but a dozen other members. Men who'd heard that something was happening. Men who wanted to help. Jack stood at the head of the table, looked at each of them. My mother was humiliated 2 days ago, he began, by 3 young men who thought they could do whatever they wanted without consequences. Some of you want to go handle this the old way. Fists in fear, I understand that. Part of me wants that too. He paused. Let the words settle. But that's not what we're doing, because I made a promise, and because the old way doesn't work. It feels good in the moment, but it doesn't change anything. You beat someone up, they heal. They press charges. You go to prison. They go on with their lives. Where's the justice in that? Viper shifted in his seat, uncomfortable, but listening. Instead, Jack continued, we're going to do something harder. We're going to expose them. We're going to gather every victim. We're going to document every crime. We're going to build a case so airtight that when it goes public, there's no denying it. No buying their way out. No sweeping it under the rug. And if they come at us, someone asked from the back, then we're ready. But we stay legal. We stay smart. We stay together. Ironhead stood. The club backs Reaper's play. Anyone got a problem with that? Silence. Then Viper spoke. I don't like it, but I trust you, brother. Let's do it your way. Nods around the table. Jack felt something in his chest loosen. Relief, maybe, or gratitude. All right, then. Here's what we need. Ledger, keep digging into the finances. Find every irregularity. I want a paper trail so clear a child could follow it. Done. Viper, keep the surveillance going, but expand it. I want to know every place they go, every person they interact with, and I want video of every interaction. On it. Reverend, coordinate with the victims. Help them document their stories. Written statements. Photos if they have them. Anything that proves what happened. I'll handle it. And Ironhead, I need you to reach out to your contacts. Media, lawyers, anyone who might be willing to help when the time comes. Consider it done. The meeting broke up. Men dispersed to their tasks. Jack was left alone with his coffee and his maps. He pulled out his phone, looked at the video of his mother one more time. 350,000 views now. The comments were a mix. Some defending Martha, some mocking her, some just making jokes. But buried in the comments, he found something interesting. A user named TruthSeeker87 had posted, "This is the third video I've seen of these guys bullying service workers. Someone needs to stop them." Jack clicked on the profile, found two more videos, same three boys, different victims. One showed them mocking a janitor at their school. An older man, maybe 65, trying to clean up trash they deliberately scattered. They filmed him, called him names, laughed when he asked them to stop. Another showed them at a restaurant, sending food back repeatedly, making increasingly ridiculous complaints, reducing a young waitress to tears. Jack downloaded both videos, added them to his growing file. Then he noticed something else. TruthSeeker87 had sent him a direct message. "I go to Stanford Prep. I've watched them bully people for 2 years. No one does anything because their parents basically own the school. If you're trying to stop them, I can help. I have more videos." Jack typed back, "Meet me somewhere public tomorrow morning." The response came within seconds. "Starbucks on Main Street, 10 a.m. I'll be wearing a red Stanford hoodie." Jack closed his phone. Pieces were falling into place. That afternoon, Jack drove to a small house in a modest neighborhood 20 minutes from the diner. The lawn was neatly trimmed, flowers in the window boxes, American flag on the porch. Reverend had made the introduction. This was where Evelyn Hastings lived with her father. Jack knocked. The door opened immediately like they'd been waiting. Hank Hastings was 58 tall and broad-shouldered, with the weathered hands of a man who worked construction. He looked at Jack's leather vest, at the patches, at the tattoos. His expression was guarded. "Mr. Sullivan? Call me Jack," Hank nodded. Stepped aside. "Come in." The living room was small but clean. Photos on the walls, family pictures. Evelyn as a child, gap-toothed and smiling. Evelyn at high school graduation. Evelyn in a college sweatshirt, hopeful. Evelyn herself sat on the couch. 20 years old but looking younger right now. Eyes red from crying. Hands twisted in her lap. Jack sat in the chair across from her. Hank stood behind his daughter, protective. "Thank you for seeing me," Jack said. "Reverend says you're trying to help," Hank replied. "Says you're going after the boys who hurt your mother. And maybe can help Evelyn too." "That's the plan. You're a biker." It wasn't a question or an accusation, just a statement. "I am. Why do you care about my daughter?" Jack looked at Evelyn. She wouldn't meet his eyes, stared at her hands instead. "Because someone taught me that protecting people who can't protect themselves isn't weakness," Jack said quietly. "It's duty. My mother taught me that, and she raised me to believe it." Hank was quiet for a moment. Then he sat down on the arm of the couch next to his daughter. "Tell him," he said gently. Evelyn took a shaky breath. "There was a party at the frat house. I was invited by a friend. I didn't really want to go, but she insisted." Her voice was small, fragile. "Trent and his friends were there. They were drinking. I wasn't. I don't drink," Jack waited. "They started saying things about how I looked, about what they wanted to do. I tried to leave, but they followed me, took pictures. I didn't know until later that they'd posted them online." "What kind of pictures?" "I was changing in a bathroom. The door didn't lock right. They pushed it open, took pictures while I was not dressed. Then they posted them with captions, terrible captions." "Did you report it?" "Yes, to the university, to the police." Her voice cracked. "The university said there wasn't enough evidence. The police said it was a he said, she said situation. And Trent's father hired lawyers, big lawyers. They threatened to sue me for defamation if I kept talking about it." "So you stopped?" "What choice did I have? My dad's a construction foreman. We don't have money for lawyers. We can't fight people like that." Jack leaned forward. "What if I told you that you're not alone, that there are 18 other people who've been hurt by these boys, and that together we might be able to do what none of us can do alone?" Evelyn looked up for the first time. Hope flickered in her eyes. Fragile, barely there. "You really think we can stop them?" "I think we can try, but I need your help. I need you to be willing to tell your story, publicly, when the time comes. They'll destroy me. They've already tried, and you're still here, still fighting. That takes more courage than most people have." Hank put his hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Evelyn, it's your choice. Whatever you decide, I support you." She was quiet for a long time. Jack didn't push, just waited. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, I'll do it, but I'm scared." "I know, but you won't be alone. I promise you that." Jack spent the next hour taking notes, getting details. contact information for witnesses, copies of the photos that had been posted, screenshots of the university's response. When he left, Hank walked him to his motorcycle. "You're a biker," he said again. Different tone this time. "My daddy used to say bikers were trouble, criminals." "Some are," Jack replied, "just like some construction workers are trouble. Some lawyers are criminals. Being part of a group doesn't define you. Your choices do." Hank studied him for a moment, then extended his hand. Jack shook it. "Take care of my girl," Hank said. "I will, or die trying." He meant it. Over the next week, Jack moved through the city like a shadow, meeting victims, collecting stories, building a mosaic of cruelty. Maureen O'Reilly, the barista, showed him the scar on her arm where the hot coffee had burned her, told him how she'd needed medical treatment, how her boss had blamed her for upsetting a customer. Dwayne Tucker, the parking attendant, showed him photos of his keyed car, the racial slur carved into the paint, told him how he'd filed a police report and never heard back. Dorothy Callahan, the Uber driver, showed him the cleaning bill. $300 for professional detailing. Money she couldn't afford to lose. Money she'd never recovered. Raymond Kowalski, the janitor, showed him videos the boys had posted. Himself on his knees cleaning up trash they'd deliberately scattered. Their laughter in the background. Each story added weight. Each person added strength. And through it all, Ledger kept digging. Viper kept watching. Reverend kept coordinating. The machine Jack had set in motion was precise, methodical, unstoppable. Saturday morning, Jack met Truth Seeker 87 at the Starbucks on Main Street. The kid was 17, skinny, nervous. The red Stanford hoodie hung loose on narrow shoulders. He sat in the corner laptop, open coffee untouched. Jack ordered his own coffee, then slid into the seat across from him. "Thanks for meeting me," Jack said. "You're really going after them?" the kid asked. No introduction, no small talk. "I am. Good. They've been terrorizing that school for 2 years. Everyone knows. No one does anything." "Why not?" "Because Ashford's dad basically funds the athletics program. Carmichael's dad is the DA. Whitmore's mom is on the city council. The principal tried to expel them last year. The board overruled her. Said there wasn't enough evidence." "But you have evidence." The kid turned his laptop around. "I've been documenting everything for 8 months. Videos, photos, testimonies from other students. I was going to post it all online anonymously, but I was scared. They'd figure out it was me eventually. And then they'd come after you." "Yeah." Jack looked at the laptop screen. Folders, dozens of them, each labeled with a date and a name. "This is a lot of work," he said. "Someone had to do something. These guys, they're not just bullies. They're predators. They find people who can't fight back, and they destroy them. For fun." "What's your name?" The kid hesitated. Then Alex Brennan. "Why are you helping me, Alex?" "Because last year they bullied my best friend so bad he tried to kill himself. Pills. His mom found him just in time." Alex's voice shook. "He transferred schools. Won't talk to me anymore. Won't talk to anyone. And nothing happened to them. Nothing." Jack was quiet for a moment. "Can I use the videos, the testimonies?" "That's why I contacted you. But I have one condition." "What?" "You protect the other students, the ones who gave me information. Some of them are still at Stanford Prep. If this blows back on them, I'll protect them. You have my word." Alex studied Jack's face, looking for something. Truth, maybe, or trustworthiness. Whatever he found, it satisfied him. "Okay, it's all yours." He pushed the laptop across the table. Jack spent the next 3 hours in that Starbucks going through files. Each one was worse than the last. Videos of students being mocked, physically intimidated, humiliated in hallways and classrooms and locker rooms. Written testimonies, stories of harassment, of threats, of fear. And through it all, the same 3 faces. Trent, Holden, Preston. When he finished, Jack looked at Alex. "This is enough to bury them." "Then do it, please, before they hurt anyone else." Jack copied everything to an encrypted drive, handed the laptop back. "Stay low for the next few weeks," he said. "If anyone asks, you don't know anything about this." "I won't say a word." They shook hands. Alex's grip was weak but determined. As Jack walked out, he pulled out his phone, sent a message to the club group chat. "We have everything we need. Time to move to phase 2. Responses came immediately. Ledger. "Ready when you are, Viper." "About damn time. Reverend, the victims are prepared to speak." Ironhead. "Do it, brother." Jack sat on his Harley in the parking lot, thought about what came next. Phase 2 was exposure, but not random, not chaotic, strategic, coordinated, maximum impact. He pulled up the contact for Constance Blackwell, the attorney Reverend had found. 64 years old, southern accent thick as honey, reputation sharp as a blade. She answered on the second ring. Mr. Sullivan, I've been waiting for your call. You still willing to take this case pro bono? Son, I've been waiting for a case like this my whole career. When do we start? Now, can you file a class action lawsuit by Monday? Against who? Trent Ashford, Holden Carmichael, and Preston Whitmore. For harassment, emotional distress, and defamation? 19 plaintiffs. Constance was quiet for a beat. Then she laughed, low and dangerous. Oh, honey, we're not just going after the boys. We're going after their families, too. Negligent supervision, enabling, failure to act. We're going to hit them where it hurts. Their wallets, their reputations, money they can replace. A destroyed name that's permanent. How long do you need to prep? Give me the files. I'll have the paperwork ready by Sunday night. We file Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. I'll send everything tonight. One more thing, Mr. Sullivan. Yeah, this is going to get ugly. They'll fight. They'll attack you. Your mother, your club, your past, everything. Are you ready for that? Jack thought about his mother, about her hands shaking, about the blue handkerchief, about the promise he'd made. I'm ready. Then let's rain hellfire. They hung up. Jack sat there a moment longer. The city moved around him, people walking, cars driving. Life continuing like nothing was about to change. But it was. In 3 days, everything would change. He started the Harley. The engine roared, and he rode toward the diner. It was Thursday again, Martha's shift, the day Trent and his friends usually came in. Jack wanted to see if they'd show up. They did. Same time, same booth, same arrogant confidence. Jack was already sitting at table 7 when they arrived. Watched them walk in. Watched them take their seats. They saw him, smirked, whispered to each other. One of them took out a phone, filmed him, posted something. Jack didn't react, just sipped his coffee, watched. Martha approached their table, nervous. Jack could see it in the way she held her order pad, the slight tremor in her hands. He wanted to intervene, wanted to walk over there and make them leave. But he didn't, because Martha needed to know she was safe, that he trusted her to handle herself, that he wasn't there to fight her battles but to support her in fighting them. She took their order. They were polite this time, too polite, mocking politeness. When she walked away, they laughed. Jack's hands tightened around his coffee mug. The ceramic creaked. Floyd appeared at table 7, set down a piece of pie Jack hadn't ordered. On the house, Floyd said. Then quieter, you okay? I'm fine. You look like you're about to explode. I'm not. What are you waiting for? Monday. Floyd raised an eyebrow. What happens Monday? Justice. Martha's shift ended at 7. Jack walked her to her car like he always did. She was tired, the tremor in her hands worse than usual. You forgot your medicine again, he said. I know, I'm sorry. Mom, you need to take it. The Parkinson's? I know, Jack, I know. I forget sometimes. They reached her car, an old Honda Civic, 20 years old. Jack kept offering to buy her a new one. She kept refusing. Those boys, she said, they were back today. I know, I saw. They were polite. Too polite. What does that mean? It means they're mocking you, and they think I can't do anything about it. Martha turned to face him, put her hand on his cheek. Promise me again. No violence. I promise. What are you going to do? Something better, something permanent. She searched his face. You're not going to tell me, are you? Not yet, but soon. And when it's done, you'll be safe. They'll never bother you again. I don't need safe, Jack. I need you. Out of trouble. Out of danger. Just here. I'm not going anywhere, Mom. She hugged him, small and fragile in his arms. He held her until she pulled away. Go home, she said. Get some rest. You look exhausted. I will. You too. He watched her drive away, waited until her taillights disappeared. Then he got on his Harley and rode back to the clubhouse. The final pieces needed to be set. Sunday night, the church room was full again. Not just officers this time. Everyone. The whole chapter. 30 men all sitting in silence as Jack laid out the plan. Tomorrow morning, he began. Constance Blackwell files a class action lawsuit on behalf of 19 victims. The lawsuit names Trent Ashford, Holden Carmichael, and Preston Whitmore. It also names their parents as co-defendants. Murmurs around the room. The lawsuit is one part. The second part is media. Reverend has contacted 3 local news stations and 1 national outlet. They'll be at the courthouse when the filing happens. And the third part, Ironhead asked, social media. We release everything, the videos, the testimonies, the evidence, all of it, at the same time the lawsuit goes public. They'll fight back, Viper said. Let them. We have the truth, and the truth is a weapon they can't beat, Ledger stood. I've also sent the financial evidence to the FBI, the IRS, and the State Attorney General's office. Ashford's real estate fraud, Carmichael's corruption, Whitmore's campaign finance violations. All of it. How long until they act? Could be weeks. Could be months. Federal investigations move slow, but they move. Jack looked around the room. At his brothers, his family. Tomorrow we light the fuse. After that, all we can do is watch it burn. There's going to be blowback. They'll come at us. At me. Maybe at the club. Anyone who wants out, now's the time. No one moved. Ironhead stood. We ride together. We fight together. Tomorrow we show them what real brotherhood looks like. 30 men stood as one. The vote was unanimous. Jack felt something in his chest. Not relief, not satisfaction, purpose. That night he couldn't sleep. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling thinking about everything that could go wrong. They could get a judge to dismiss the lawsuit. They could use their connections to bury the media coverage. They could intimidate the victims into silence. They could win, but they could also lose. And Jack had bet everything on them losing. At 3 a.m. his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Sullivan, this is Evelyn. I can't sleep. I'm scared. What if this doesn't work? What if it makes everything worse? Jack typed back. Fear is natural, but you're not alone. Tomorrow 19 voices speak as one. That's louder than any threat. What if they come after us? Then we protect each other. That's what family does. And we're family now. All of us. A long pause. Then, thank you for caring when no one else did. Someone cared about me once. I'm just passing it forward. Now try to sleep. Tomorrow everything changes. He put the phone down, closed his eyes, and for the first time in a week he slept. Monday morning came bright and cold. Jack stood outside the courthouse at 8:30, Constance Blackwell beside him. She wore a power suit, red, bold, her silver hair pulled back in a bun, eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. You ready? She asked. I'm ready. At 8:45, the victims started arriving. 19 of them, some with family, some alone. All nervous, all determined. Martha came. Jack had asked her to. She stood beside him, holding his hand. At 8:55, 3 news vans pulled up. Cameras, reporters, microphones. And at exactly 9 a.m., Constance Blackwell walked into the courthouse and filed the lawsuit. The reporters swarmed. Questions flew. Constance held up one hand. I'll make a statement. Then you can ask questions. She pulled out a prepared speech. Read it clear and loud. Today we file a class action lawsuit against Trent Ashford III, Holden Carmichael, and Preston Whitmore for sustained harassment, emotional distress, and defamation. We also name their parents as co-defendants for negligent supervision and failure to act despite repeated complaints. This lawsuit represents 19 victims, service workers, students, ordinary people whose only crime was being in the wrong place when these young men decided to exercise cruelty for entertainment. We have video evidence, written testimonies, documented patterns of behavior spanning 2 years. This is not a he said, she said situation. This is a clear, undeniable record of systematic abuse. She paused. Let the words sink in. We are not doing this for money. We are doing this because someone needs to stand up and say enough. Wealth does not grant immunity. Power does not excuse cruelty. And no one is above consequences. The questions erupted. What do you say to claims this is a publicity stunt? Who's funding this lawsuit? Are the Hells Angels involved? Constance answered calmly, professionally, devastatingly. And while she spoke, Jack's phone buzzed. Ledger. It's live. Everything, every video, every testimony. Trending on Twitter. #justice. For Martha's number 3 nationally, Jack looked at his mother. She was crying, but smiling. Did we do it? She whispered. We lit the fuse, Mom. Now we see what burns. The cameras turned to the victims. Evelyn spoke, her voice shaking but strong. They posted private photos of me. They harassed me. They destroyed my reputation. And when I tried to get help, I was silenced. I'm not silent anymore. Dwayne spoke. They vandalized my property with racial slurs. I reported it. Nothing happened. Maybe now something will. One by one they spoke. 19 voices. one truth, and the city listened. The firestorm hit within hours. By noon, the hashtag Justice for Martha had climbed to #1 trending nationwide. By 3 p.m., CNN had picked up the story. By evening, every major news outlet in California was running segments. The videos spread like wildfire. Not just the one of Martha, but all of them. Alex Brennan's carefully documented archive. Viper's surveillance footage. The testimonies. All of it cascading across social media in an unstoppable wave. The comment sections were brutal. Some defended the boys, called it a witch hunt, said everyone makes mistakes, said this was an overreaction. But most didn't. Most saw exactly what Jack had seen. A pattern, a choice. Cruelty for entertainment. Jack sat in the clubhouse that night watching it unfold on his laptop. The church room was full. Brothers watching different screens, tracking different platforms, reading different reactions. Fox News just ran a segment, Viper called out. They're calling it an example of wealthy privilege run amok. MSNBC is focusing on the racial aspects, Reverend added. Dwayne's story is getting major traction. Twitter's on fire, Ledger said, scrolling through his phone. People are digging up everything about these families. Old lawsuits, complaints, connections. It's turning into a full investigation by armchair detectives. Ironhead sat beside Jack. You started something here, brother. Question is, can you control it? I don't need to control it, I just need to write it. His phone rang. Unknown number. Jack answered. Mr. Sullivan. A woman's voice. Professional. Clipped. This is Margaret Chen from the New York Times. I'm doing a piece on wealth, privilege, and accountability. I'd like to interview you. I'm not the story. With respect, you absolutely are. A Hell's Angel taking down 3 connected families using legal means instead of violence. That's a story people need to hear. Jack thought about it. Publicity meant pressure. Pressure meant harder for the families to make this disappear. All right, when? Tomorrow. I can be in California by noon. They set a time and place. Jack hung up. New York Times, he told Ironhead. The older man whistled. This is bigger than you planned, isn't it? Yeah, but that's good. The bigger it gets, the harder it is to kill. His phone rang again. This time a number he recognized. Constance Blackwell. We have a problem, she said without preamble. Jack's chest tightened. What kind of problem? The kind where the other side doesn't play fair. Ashford's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss. They're claiming the lawsuit is frivolous and motivated by extortion. They're also filing a countersuit against you personally. For what? Harassment, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. They're asking for $10 million in damages. Jack was quiet for a moment. He'd expected pushback. But $10 million, can they win? Not on the merits, but they can drag this out for years, bury you in legal fees, make your life hell. That's the point. They're trying to scare you into backing down. I'm not backing down. I didn't think you would. But Jack, you need to understand what you're up against. These people have unlimited resources. They'll investigate every aspect of your life, your criminal record, your club, your mother. They'll look for anything they can use. Let them look. I've got nothing to hide. Everyone has something to hide. Jack thought about his 3 years in Pelican Bay, the fights he'd been in, the deals he'd made to survive, the things he'd done that he wasn't proud of. I can handle it, he said finally. Okay, but there is something else. The families are going on the offensive. Trent Ashford is giving an interview tomorrow. He's claiming you threatened him, that you're running a protection racket, that this whole thing is organized crime hiding behind a lawsuit. That's a lie. Of course it's a lie, but lies told by wealthy white boys in expensive suits play differently than truth told by bikers in leather vests. You know that. Jack did know that, had known it his whole life. So what do? We get ahead of it. You give interviews too. You control your narrative before they control it for you. And Jack, you be yourself. Don't try to seem respectable or tame. People can smell fake. Be authentic. That's your strength. They talked strategy for another 20 minutes. When Jack hung up, Ironhead was watching him. Bad news. They're fighting back. Countersuit, media campaign, the works. Expected? Yeah, but harder than I thought. You having second thoughts? Jack thought about his mother, about Evelyn, about all 19 victims who'd put their trust in him. No, we finished this. That night, Jack lay awake again, but this time his phone stayed quiet. The victims were silent, maybe sleeping, maybe just waiting. He thought about what came next. The interviews, the depositions, the trial if it got that far, the long grinding machinery of justice. His father would have hated this. James Sullivan had believed in immediate action, immediate consequences. You wrong someone, you pay right then. But Jack had learned patience in prison, had learned that the slow grind could be more devastating than the quick strike, had learned that revenge was about making yourself feel better, but justice was about making them understand. Tuesday morning, three things happened simultaneously. First, Trent Ashford appeared on a local morning show, dressed in a suit, hair perfect, practiced expressions of concern and hurt. "I'm terrified," he told the host, eyes wide. "This man, this criminal, he approached us at a restaurant. He threatened us, said if we didn't do what he wanted, there would be consequences. And now he's filed this lawsuit trying to extort money from my family." The host nodded sympathetically. "That must be frightening." "It is. My father's trying to protect me, but this man has connections, gang connections. We're scared for our safety." Jack watched it on his phone, felt his jaw tighten. Second, the district attorney's office issued a statement. Wallace Carmichael looking stern and professional behind a podium. "We take allegations of extortion and organized crime very seriously. My office is investigating the claims made by the Ashford family. If we find evidence of criminal conduct, we will prosecute to the full extent of the law." Never mind that Carmichael was named in the lawsuit. Never mind the conflict of interest. He was the DA, and he was protecting his own. Third and most damaging, someone leaked Jack's prison records to the media. Every fight, every disciplinary action, every incident from those 3 years in Pelican Bay. The headlines were immediate. "Hell's Angel behind Justice campaign has violent past. Lawsuit leader served time for assault. Is this about justice or revenge?" By 10 a.m., public opinion had started to shift. Not completely, but enough. Doubt crept in. Jack sat in the clubhouse reading article after article, each one painting him as a thug, a criminal, someone using legitimate grievances to settle personal scores. "They're good," Viper said, reading over his shoulder. "I'll give them that. They found your weakness and they're hammering it. It's not a weakness, it's the truth. I did go to prison." "Yeah, but context matters. You went to prison for protecting your mother from a landlord who was threatening her. That's different than just random violence. Try explaining that in a headline." Reverend walked in carrying a tablet. "You need to see this. It's already got 2 million views." He turned the screen around. It was a video, but not from the media, from Truthseeker 87, from Alex. The kid had recorded himself. Face visible now, no more hiding. "My name is Alex Brennan," he said to the camera. "I'm 17 years old. I go to Stanford Prep Academy, and I've watched Trent Ashford, Holden Carmichael, and Preston Whitmore bully people for 2 years." He took a breath. "The media is saying Jack Sullivan is a criminal, that he's violent, that this lawsuit is about revenge. But I've met Jack Sullivan, and I've met Trent Ashford, and I can tell you which one scared me more. Trent and his friends don't use fists. They use money, connections, power. They destroy people in ways that don't leave bruises. And that's worse, because no one believes the victims. Jack Sullivan gave victims a voice. He organized us, protected us, believed us when no one else would. Is he perfect? No, but he's fighting for people who can't fight for themselves. And that's more than anyone else has done." The video ended. Alex had just painted a target on his own back, and he'd done it willingly. Jack pulled out his phone, called Alex. The kid answered immediately. "Did you see it?" "I saw it. You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. They're trying to make you the villain. Someone needed to tell the truth. They're going to come after you now. Let them. I'm tired of being scared." Jack heard it in the kid's voice, the same thing he'd heard in Evelyn's, in Dwayne's, in all the victims. They were done being silent. "Thank you," Jack said. "Don't thank me. Just finish this." At noon, Margaret Chen from the New York Times arrived. She was younger than Jack expected. Early 40s, sharp eyes, recorder in hand. They met at a neutral location, a park, picnic tables under oak trees. Jack sat across from her. Didn't hide the leather vest, didn't hide the tattoos. "Thank you for meeting me," she began. "I've been following this story since it broke. It's fascinating." "Fascinating isn't the word I'd use." "What word would you use?" Jack thought about it. "Necessary." She smiled. Hit record on her device. "Let's start with the obvious question. You're a Hell's Angel. You have a criminal record. Why should people believe this is about justice and not revenge?" "Because revenge would have been easier. Revenge would have been 3 guys with broken bones and me back in prison. Justice is harder. Justice requires patience, evidence, following the law even when you don't want to." "But you did break the law before." You went to prison for assault. I did. When I was 23, my mother was being threatened by a landlord. He wanted her to do sexual things in exchange for not evicting her. I beat him unconscious. I'd do it again. Margaret raised an eyebrow. That doesn't sound like someone who respects the law. I respect the law. I just respect my mother more. But I also learned from that mistake. I learned that violence solves the immediate problem but creates bigger ones. That's why I'm doing this differently now. Walking us through your thinking. When you saw what happened to your mother, what was your first instinct? Jack was quiet for a moment. Honest, to hurt them, to make them feel what she felt, to teach them fear. But you didn't. No, because I promised her I wouldn't, and because I've spent 16 years learning that there are better ways, like, like exposing them, like gathering evidence, like giving other victims the courage to speak up, like using the system instead of fighting against it. Margaret made notes. The families are saying you threatened the boys, that this is extortion. I gave them a choice, apologize and change or face consequences. That's not a threat, that's an opportunity. They're also saying you're using your gang connections to intimidate them. I'm not in a gang, I'm in a motorcycle club. There's a difference, and the only thing I've used is the truth. Everything in that lawsuit is documented, provable, legal. But surely you understand how it looks. A biker going after wealthy families. It fits a narrative. Jack leaned forward. You want to know what narrative fits rich kids hurting poor people because they can, because no one stops them, because money buys silence. That's the narrative that's been true for generations. I'm just trying to change one small piece of it. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Then, tell me about your mother. Jack's expression softened. My mother is the strongest person I know. She raised me alone after my father died, worked 3 jobs, never complained, never asked for help. She taught me that kindness isn't weakness, that protecting people matters more than protecting yourself. And when you saw her on her knees cleaning up that mess, I saw 68 years of dignity destroyed in 30 seconds. I saw 3 boys laughing at someone they'd never understand. And I knew I had to do something. Not just for her, for everyone they'd hurt. The interview lasted an hour. When it was over, Margaret turned off her recorder. Off the record, she said, I think you're right. I think these boys needed to face consequences, but I also think you're walking a very fine line. One misstep and you become the villain in this story. I know. So don't misstep. The article ran 2 days later, front page of the New York Times website. The headline, The Biker, the Waitress, and the Fight for Dignity. How one man is taking on privilege with patience instead of fists. It was fair, balanced. It presented both sides but didn't hide from the truth. And it shifted the conversation again. Suddenly other outlets wanted interviews. Other victims wanted to share their stories. The narrative was changing. But the families weren't done fighting. Friday afternoon, Jack's phone rang. Constance. They want to settle, she said. Jack's heart jumped. What? Ashford's lawyers reached out. They want to discuss settlement terms. Off the record. No admission of guilt. How much? They're offering $50,000, split among all 19 plaintiffs, in exchange for dropping the lawsuit and signing NDAs. Jack did the math. 50,000 divided by 19. Less than 3,000 each. That's insulting. It is. But it's also a sign they're worried. You don't offer to settle a frivolous lawsuit. What do the victims think? I haven't asked them yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Because here's the thing, Jack. We can push for more. We can go to trial, but trials are risky. We might lose. And even if we win, appeals could drag this out for years. Some of these people need money now, need closure now. Jack thought about Evelyn, about Dwayne, about his mother. Set up a meeting, all 19 plaintiffs. Let them decide together. This was never about what I wanted. It's about what they need. You're a good man, Jack Sullivan. I'm trying to be. The meeting happened Sunday afternoon. All 19 plaintiffs gathered in a community center. Constance presented the offer, explained the risks of going to trial, the timeline, the uncertainty. Then she opened the floor. Evelyn spoke first. $3,000 doesn't change my life, but making sure they face real consequences might change someone else's. Dwayne agreed. I didn't come forward for money. I came forward because someone finally believed me. If we settle now, what message does that send? But Dorothy, the Uber driver, disagreed. I'm behind on rent. $3,000 means I don't get evicted. I want justice, but I also need to survive. The room debated. Some wanted to push forward, some wanted to settle. The group was split. Finally, Martha stood. She'd been quiet until now. "May I say something?" she asked. The room went silent. "I'm not a plaintiff in this lawsuit. I'm just a mother whose son is trying to do right by people who've been hurt. But I've been watching all of you, and I've been thinking about what justice means." She looked around the room. Justice isn't about making them pay money. It's about making them understand, making them change, making sure this doesn't happen to the next person. $3,000 each. That's not justice. That's a rich family buying silence. Again. But if we go to trial, if we push forward, if we refuse to be quiet, then maybe, just maybe, those boys learn something. Maybe their parents learn something. Maybe the next person who thinks about doing this remembers what happened and stops. She sat down. The room was quiet. Then Evelyn stood. "I vote we reject this settlement. I vote we go to trial." One by one, hands went up. 17 of 19 voted to continue. Only Dorothy and one other person voted to settle. Constance looked at Jack. "The majority has spoken. We proceed to trial." Jack nodded, felt something in his chest. Pride, maybe, or hope. These people had found their courage. Constance called the Ashford lawyers that night, rejected the settlement. The response was immediate and vicious. Monday morning, the families went nuclear. Ashford Real Estate filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, claimed the lawsuit had destroyed their business, laid off 300 employees. The media coverage was brutal. Lawsuit forces major employer to file bankruptcy. 300 jobs lost in wake of Hells Angels legal action. The narrative shifted again. Now Jack wasn't fighting for the little guy. He was destroying livelihoods. Wallace Carmichael held a press conference. "This lawsuit is having devastating effects on our community. Hundreds of people are out of work because of one man's vendetta." The pressure mounted. Jack received death threats. His phone number had leaked somehow. Messages poured in, some supportive, many hateful. "You're destroying families. Those workers have kids. What about them? You're a thug hiding behind a lawsuit." The clubhouse got vandalized. Graffiti on the walls, windows broken. Someone slashed the tires on Jack's Harley. Viper wanted blood. "This is what we should have done from the start. Go to their houses, end this." But Jack held firm. "They're trying to provoke us, trying to make us prove we're the villains they say we are. We don't give them that satisfaction. So what do? We stay the course, we trust the process." But even Jack was starting to doubt. Then on Wednesday, something unexpected happened. The FBI announced indictments, not against Jack, against Morrison Ashford Sr. 15 counts of tax fraud, 20 counts of wire fraud, 8 counts of money laundering. The press conference was devastating. Federal prosecutors laid out a scheme spanning 3 years. Millions in unreported income, shell companies, offshore accounts. Mr. Ashford's bankruptcy filing was not caused by a lawsuit, the lead prosecutor said. It was a desperate attempt to hide assets from federal investigation. The lawsuit simply accelerated the timeline. The narrative shifted again, violently. Suddenly, Jack wasn't the villain. He was the one who'd accidentally exposed massive fraud. The laid-off workers weren't victims of the lawsuit. They were victims of their boss's crimes, and the media had to reckon with the fact that they'd been manipulated. But the hits kept coming. Thursday, the state attorney general announced an investigation into DA Wallace Carmichael. Allegations of corruption, selective prosecution, abuse of power. Friday, City Councilwoman Victoria Whitmore resigned. The ethics investigation had found campaign finance violations. Criminal charges were pending. By the weekend, all 3 families were in crisis, and the boys were completely exposed. No money to hire expensive lawyers, no powerful parents to make calls, no shields. Just 3 young men facing the consequences of their choices. The trial was scheduled for 3 months later, but it never happened, because 2 weeks before the trial date, something changed. Jack received a call, not from Constance, from Trent Ashford. "Mr. Sullivan?" The voice was different, smaller, no arrogance, no bravado. "Yeah, this is Trent. Can we talk in person?" Jack's first instinct was to refuse. But something in the kid's voice made him pause. "Why?" "Because I need to say something, and it needs to be face-to-face." They met at Riverside Diner, Trent's choice. The irony wasn't lost on Jack. Trent arrived alone. No friends, no lawyers. He looked different, thinner, older. The expensive clothes were gone, jeans and a plain t-shirt. He slid into the booth across from Jack, hands shaking. "Thank you for meeting me," he said. Jack didn't respond, just waited. Trent took a breath. "My father's in jail. My family's broke. I got expelled from school. I lost everything. That's what happens when you break the law. I know, and I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm just telling you where I am, because I've had 3 months to think about what I did, about who I was, about why." He looked at Jack, really looked at him. "I was cruel because I could be, because no one ever stopped me, because money and power meant I never had to face consequences. And I thought that made me strong. But it didn't. It made me weak." Jack stayed silent. "You could have beat me up that day at the diner. Part of me wishes you had, because that would have been simple, quick, over. But you didn't. You did something worse." "What's that?" "You made me see myself. You made me understand what I'd done. Not just to your mother, but to all those people. And you did it in a way I couldn't ignore or forget or buy my way out of." Trent's voice cracked. "I humiliated your mother. I hurt innocent people. I destroyed Evelyn's life. I was a monster. And I didn't even realize it until you held up a mirror. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm asking you to let me apologize, publicly, to your mother, to every victim. Not because my lawyer told me to, not because it'll help in court, because it's right, and because I need them to know that I understand now." Jack studied the kid, looking for manipulation, for angles. But all he saw was genuine remorse, the kind that comes from real suffering. "This doesn't erase what you did. I know. And I can't speak for the victims. That's their choice. I know. But will you help me ask them?" Jack thought about his mother's words, about forgiveness, about second chances, about the blue handkerchief. "I'll set up a meeting. But Trent, if you're doing this for the wrong reasons, if this is some legal strategy, I'll know. And then we're done." "It's not. I swear." 2 weeks later, they gathered at City Hall. Not inside, on the steps, public space, all 19 victims. The media, cameras rolling, the whole city watching. Trent stood at a microphone, Holden and Preston beside him, all three in simple clothes, no expensive lawyers, no parents. Just three young men who'd run out of places to hide. Trent spoke first. "My name is Trent Ashford. 3 months ago, I humiliated a 68-year-old woman at her workplace. I filmed it. I laughed about it. I posted it online. That woman was Martha Sullivan." He looked at Martha standing in the front row. "Mrs. Sullivan, what I did to you was unforgivable. But I'm asking for the chance to become forgivable. I'm asking for the chance to spend the rest of my life trying to be better than I was." His voice broke. "I destroyed you for entertainment. I treated you like you were beneath me, like you didn't matter. And I was wrong. You matter. Every person I hurt matters. And I'm sorry. From the bottom of my soul, I'm sorry." Tears ran down his face. Real ones. Holden spoke next. Apologized to Dwayne, to the other victims. Voice shaking with genuine emotion. Preston did the same. When they finished, the crowd was silent. Then Martha stepped forward. She walked up to Trent, looked at him. This boy who'd hurt her, who'd mocked her, who'd made her cry. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the blue handkerchief, held it out to him. "My husband gave me this," she said softly. "It represents second chances. He had one. My son had one. Now you have one." She pressed it into Trent's hand. "Don't waste it." Trent broke down completely. Sobbed like a child. Holden and Preston the same. And slowly, one by one, the other victims came forward. Some offered hands to shake, some offered forgiveness. Some just nodded acknowledgement. Not all of them. Evelyn stayed back, and that was her right. But most did. The cameras captured all of it. That night, the footage went viral. But not for mockery, for hope. 3 bullies apologize, a story of accountability and grace, when justice leads to redemption. The lawsuit was quietly dropped the next week. The victims agreed. The apology had been real, the remorse genuine. Continuing felt like cruelty rather than justice. But the criminal cases against the parents proceeded. Morrison Ashford got 10 years. Wallace Carmichael was disbarred and sentenced to 5. Victoria Whitmore's political career was over. The boys they had to rebuild from nothing. 6 months later, Jack sat at table 7. Sunday morning, Martha across from him. The diner was busy, crowded, happy. The door chimed. Trent Ashford walked in, wearing a Riverside Diner uniform, dishwasher turned prep cook. Martha had hired him, given him a job when no one else would. He waved at Jack, nervous but hopeful. Jack nodded back. You think he'll make it? Martha asked. I don't know, but he's trying. That's more than most people do. The blue handkerchief sat folded on the table between them. Faded, worn, still carrying its meaning. Your father would be proud of you, Martha said. I don't know about that. I do. You found a better way. A harder way, but better. Jack thought about the last 6 months. The lawsuit, the media, the threats, the vindication. The three boys who'd learned accountability the hard way. I didn't do it alone. No, you built something. A community of people who refuse to stay silent. That's powerful, Jack. More powerful than any punch you could have thrown. The jukebox kicked on. Credence again. Have you ever seen the rain? Jack smiled. Dad's song. He loved this song. Said it reminded him that storms pass. That sun comes after rain. Does it? Always, if you're patient enough to wait. They sat in comfortable silence. Mother and son, at table 7, where James had proposed, where Jack had grown up, where justice had been served not with fists but with persistence. The door chimed again. Evelyn walked in. She'd transferred to a new school, was doing better. Therapy had helped. She saw Jack, came over. Mr. Sullivan, Mrs. Sullivan, I just wanted to say thank you. The scholarship came through, full ride to UC Berkeley. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Martha said. It wouldn't have happened without you, without all of this. I was ready to give up, but you showed me that speaking up matters. Jack stood, shook her hand. You showed yourself. We just gave you a platform. After she left, Martha reached across the table, took Jack's hand. This is what justice looks like, she said. Not perfect, not always satisfying, but real, lasting. Good. Jack looked around the diner, at the people eating, laughing, living, at Trent in the kitchen learning to work, at the table where his father had once sat, at his mother still strong despite trembling hands. Yeah, he said quietly, I think you're right. That night, Jack rode his Harley through the city, not running from anything, not chasing anything, just riding. The engine rumbled beneath him, the same sound his father's bike had made, the same sound that had filled his childhood. But Jack wasn't his father. His father had fought with rage, had died young, consumed by violence he couldn't control. Jack had learned patience, had learned that the slow burn could be more devastating than the quick fire, had learned that grace was stronger than rage. He rode to the cemetery, parked outside the gates, walked to his father's grave. The headstone was simple. James Sullivan, 1959 to 2005. Beloved husband and father. Jack sat on the grass, looked at the name carved in stone. Hey, Dad, he said, I did something you wouldn't have understood. I fought a battle without throwing a punch, and I won. The wind rustled through the trees. Mom's good. She's proud of me. Says you would be too. I don't know if that's true, but I hope it is. He stood, touched the headstone. I'm not you. I'll never be you, but I'm trying to be better. To take what you taught me about strength and courage and family and use it in ways that don't destroy me. Thanks for the lessons, Dad, even the hard ones. He walked back to his bike. The cemetery was quiet, peaceful. He rode home thinking about everything that had changed, everything that had stayed the same. The club was stronger, united by purpose rather than just brotherhood. The victims had found their voices, their power, their dignity. The families had fallen, not completely, but enough. And three boys had learned that consequences were real, that money couldn't buy immunity. That cruelty had a price. Was it perfect justice? No, but it was real justice. The kind that lasted, the kind that changed people. 6 months after that, Jack received a letter. Handwritten, from Trent. Mr. Sullivan, I'm writing to tell you that I've enrolled in community college. I'm studying social work. I want to help people the way you helped me, not by enabling them, but by holding them accountable while still believing they can change. I'm also speaking at high schools, telling my story, warning kids about the path I went down, showing them that privilege and power corrupt if you let them. I still work at the diner 3 days a week. Your mother is the kindest person I've ever met. She treats me with more grace than I deserve. I'm trying to earn that grace every day. I know I can never undo what I did, but I can spend the rest of my life trying to balance the scales. That's what I'm doing. Thank you for not giving up on me when you had every reason to. Trent. Jack folded the letter, put it in his wallet, next to a photo of his parents at table 7. That Sunday, he rode to the diner early. Martha's shift started at 7. She was already there when he arrived, wiping down tables, hands still shaking. but smiling. Trent was in the kitchen prepping vegetables, focused, hardworking. Jack sat at table 7. Floyd brought coffee without being asked. "Your usual spot," he said. "Always." Jack looked around the diner, this place that had been part of his entire life, where his father had proposed, where he'd grown up, where his mother had worked for 40 years, where justice had finally been served. Not with violence, not with revenge, but with patience, truth, grace. The door chimed. A young woman walked in, college age, nervous. She approached the counter. "Excuse me," she said to Floyd. "I'm looking for Jack Sullivan. Is he here?" Floyd pointed to table 7. She walked over, stood beside the booth. "Mr. Sullivan, my name is Rebecca. I was wondering if you could help me. My grandmother was evicted from her apartment illegally. We tried to fight it, but the landlord has lawyers and I don't know what to do." Jack looked at her, saw the desperation, the hope, the belief that maybe, just maybe, someone would help. He gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit down. Tell me everything." She did, and as she spoke, Jack pulled out his phone, sent a message to the club group chat. "Got another one. Who's in?" The responses came immediately. Ledger. "I'll dig into the landlord's finances." Viper. "I'll handle surveillance." Reverend. "I'll find other victims." Ironhead. "The club rides with you, brother." Jack looked at Rebecca, at this young woman who'd come to him for help because she'd heard what he'd done for others. "We'll handle this," he said. "Legally, properly, but we'll handle it." She started crying. Relief. Gratitude. Martha brought over 2 more coffees, set them down, squeezed Jack's shoulder. "That's my boy," she whispered. Jack watched his mother walk away. Watched her serve other customers with the same dignity and grace she'd always had. Watched Trent in the kitchen working hard trying to earn redemption one shift at a time. Watched the diner fill with people. Good people. Working people. People just trying to make it through the day. And he realized something. This was his purpose. Not riding, not the club, not even the leather vest he wore. His purpose was this: using his strength to protect people who needed protection. Using his knowledge to fight battles they couldn't fight alone. Being the person his mother had raised him to be. Not his father, not a warrior, a protector. He turned back to Rebecca. "Start from the beginning. Don't leave anything out." And as she spoke, as the diner hummed with life around them, as the jukebox played songs from decades past, Jack Sullivan did what he did best. He listened, he planned, he prepared to fight. Not with fists, with patience, with truth, with the law, the way his mother had taught him. The right way. His way. Outside, the California sun rose higher. Light spilled through the windows, painting everything gold. At table 7, Jack Sullivan sat with his coffee, listening to another person who needed help, ready to fight another battle for justice. And in the kitchen, Trent Ashford chopped vegetables, working toward a redemption he might never fully achieve, but would spend his life pursuing. Both men in their own ways proof that people could change, that consequences could teach, that grace offered at the right moment could transform monsters into men. The blue handkerchief sat folded in Martha's apron pocket, ready for the next person who needed to understand what it represented. Second chances, forgiveness, the belief that even broken things could be made whole again. If you were patient enough, strong enough, graceful enough. The diner would open every day. Martha would serve customers. Trent would work in the kitchen. Jack would sit at table 7. And when someone needed help, they would come. Because word spreads, justice finds its voice. And grace once witnessed becomes contagious. This was the legacy James Sullivan had left, though he never lived to see it. Not violence, not rage, but a son who learned to be better, a mother who taught grace, and a community that learned that standing together, speaking truth, refusing silence was stronger than any fist. The story didn't end that day. It wouldn't end for years, because justice isn't a destination. It's a practice, something you do every day with every choice in every moment. Jack Sullivan understood that now, and he would spend the rest of his life proving it. One victim at a time, one fight at a time, one act of grace at a time. The reaper of consequences, the harvester of justice, the son who honored his mother not by becoming what his father was, but by becoming what his father could have been. If he'd only had patience, grace, and someone to show him a better way. The way Martha showed Jack, the way Jack showed Trent, the way the story would continue long after the last word was written. Because that's what justice does. It spreads, it teaches, it transforms. One blue handkerchief at a time.